Welcome back to the Freedom Parents Podcast, where today we're going to share with you one of the most impactful things someone's ever told me, and that is MTP, marry the process, divorce the results.
Welcome back to the Freedom Podcast. Y'all, I left the word out. The Freedom Parent Podcast. That's right. We are here today to help you just break up with the nonsense in your head, right? All the I can'ts, what ifs, buts.
Is that what we're doing?
Yep, and we're ready. We're going to help you level up. And it's a very simple process, actually. Once you wrap your head around it, we call it the MTP life.
MTP.
Marry the process.
Divorce the results.
That's right.
I stole that from a mentor many, many years ago who I followed. And man, he just kept driving that home. And for some reason, it stuck with me. It's like, there's just times you hear things and then someone will say it a different way and someone say the same thing a different way. And then finally, it just connects with you. And the way he said that was marry the process, divorce the results. And then it was just like,
where were you at in that day too? Because I think I kind of remember like the place of life we were in.
Oh, he said it all the time. He said it in so many of his podcasts and so many of his trainings that I watched. So I got to give credit to him. It was Ray Higdon. And I actually got to meet him at a GoPro event. Got a picture with him.
I remember that. That's cool.
There's a normal human that's doing some extraordinary things, but yeah, very systematic person.
Mm-hmm.
It's one thing I say about him. And this podcast isn't about him, but I like to, if I can remember who to give credit to, I do. If I don't, I can't, unfortunately. But
yeah,
I do remember.
You always do your best. I think that's really cool.
Exactly.
But I think we still had our small business then, like when you heard this message. And we were making a lot of progress in our quote unquote side hustle, which was, then started to outproduce our small business, what some people would consider the legit business,
The legit business.
Brick and mortar. But
the in debt to my eyeballs business.
We were moving away from that business model, and we were all in with the business. But remember when you heard this message, and it really was, there was like a switch that went off in you because you could tell it just really resonated and made sense. And then I remember when you start teaching it to coaches that we have the honor to mentor and work with. And then it started clicking for them. And I'll be honest, it clicked with me too. Marry the process, divorce the results. What it meant to me in that season was, despite all the nonsense head stuff that I had going on in my head about, why I couldn't do what I was doing, or why I was forgetting to do certain things, or how I was becoming very scattered. Scatteredness, if that's a word, is a thing though for a lot of people as they're, bringing up, businesses that they're growing, or you're an entrepreneur. And for me, it also made sense when you started teaching about this. Marry the process means that you focus more on what you need to do now.
Right, the actionables.
Versus worrying about the result that you're going to get in the future.
Yeah, because we live in that microwave mentality. Oftentimes we start the gym on January 1st, and I think last week was statistically when most people quit the gym. They started January 1st, and then they just quit last week. Wow. I saw someone make a post about that. And that's because it's that microwave mentality, right? The results aren't showing up fast enough for the amount of energy or effort that they're putting in. And they don't realize that things take time, right? Wow. Things take time, but it's going to be here before you know it. So the whole thing about marry the process is when you get basically, first you identify what the goal is and what the result you want to yield is. You get clear on that. And then you reverse engineer. Well, what's the daily actions that I have to do? What's those activity goals that I can control? So you can't control the results. Like we can't control when someone's gonna want to sign up and join our business with us. We can't control that. We can't control when or if they will say yes, right? Whether it's a client or someone who wants to coach with us or what it may be. We can't control that. We can't control that result. But what we can control is our actions. And when you compound those actions and those activities over time, consistently, the results will show up every single time. And that's the way he said it. And that just I was just like, it gave me hope, because I was like, wow, if I just dial in these activities, refine them, tweak them, get better at them, continue to hone them, but continue to do them, most importantly, that word DO, do, most importantly, and then just get better and better at them. And over time, I don't know when, he always would say, I don't know when, I don't know how long, but the results will show up. And oftentimes we get in that comparative reality, especially in our business, because oftentimes people would bring certain levels of influence to the table with them because of their past life.
Yep.
Whether they had a pastoral background, or they were in similar industry, or they were just in ministry of some sort or whatever. So they'd bring this great influence with them, and they would get results faster. So then you had people like us or other people who didn't have that much influence coming in.
Right.
And they get discouraged because they start doing that comparative reality, the microwave mentality, all that just starts working against them. And yeah, just the whole process of it just made sense. And it gave that hope of, all right, let's dial it in. Let's get our activity goals in check.
Yeah, that's huge. Actually, what you're talking about, the comparison, before I forget, there was something else that you triggered in what you just said too, is like, so basically marry the process, divorce the results. It takes in how we apply it a lot to business. We have begun to apply it to just our every part of our life. And hence why I created the Power to Pivot calendar and goal sheet that I created. But it takes business building activities and it turns it into habits, because you have to be committed to just doing what it takes. Once you identify what those actions are, right, that will help you build your business, you have to become committed to just doing it regardless of what the result is that you want. You have to, if you've vetted it, if you know that you do X, Y, and Z, and then some, that over time, you will get a certain results.
Well, it's a very simple analogy of it would be, and we can do a couple of them if it helps those who are listening, but it's, think of your health and fitness, right? No one's going to do the push-ups for you, the sit-ups for you. No one's going to drink the water for you. No one's going to dial in the nutrition for you. No one's going to do it for you. You can control that. You can't control the results that are going to come. So if you show up Monday through Friday and you do X, Y, and Z, whether it's lower body, upper body, you do some cardio, strength training, you're dialing in all that nutritional stuff. I don't know when, because I don't know where you're starting from. So I don't know when those desired results are going to show up, but I can guarantee you, as you begin to refine and control those activities, the results will show up.
Yes, 100%. You hit another.
So if we say it 3 or 4 different ways, maybe people start to.
It finally starts to sink in.
Because I know I'm
hopefully.
Like that. Yeah.
Yeah. You had another point that I thought was really interesting when you said, like, talking about when we start that comparison game. And we look at individuals that have maybe, accomplished what we want to accomplish, but they also did it in a certain time frame or something that, you've got your racehorses out there for everything that are just like, they're going to win the gold no matter what, right? But we often don't look at what they stepped up to the plate with. And that's huge, because so many really great, wonderful people with such big potential for leadership in their future give up on themselves because of comparing themselves to someone that just had a little more life or a little more wisdom or a little more influence, and they disregard the fact that you can too build all those things. But what are you stepping up to the starting line with? So for us, for example, when we stepped up to the starting line of the business that we run now and operate, we didn't have really a lot. What we had to look at what our assets were. We had work ethic, right? We could work. We were willing to do the work. We were willing to work hard. We like to create things. So we're okay starting from scratch if it made sense, though, right? Only if it makes sense. We didn't,
But the road's been paved. Then we were okay with following that road.
We didn't need change all the time, but we were okay with change if it made sense. We can be charismatic and dynamic once we are not feeling insecure or whatever. And I think a lot of people can, resonate with that. But once you just really learn to be yourself, we were okay with stepping into the limelight if it meant helping other people, like, stepping onto that stage. We had some influence, but not much really, We had our name in a small part of the community as fitness professionals, and we leaned into that. And so that's where we were starting. We didn't have huge social media followings, right? In fact, when we started, our side hustle was what made us start actually leaning into social media more. Remember, we hardly ever posted on Facebook. We didn't even have an Instagram. We did some YouTube for the business only because someone told us that we had to. And that was very inconsistent. We never did networking meetings for that business. We were never willing to do any of those things. But for our side hustle, we looked at our assets and we said, well, this vehicle is worth it. So it may take us some time to cultivate the social media following. We might have to do some networking, but ultimately we can grow the influence. It's going to take us a little bit longer, but we can do this, right? So analyzing your assets and not comparing the length of time that someone else with more assets can get to the finish line, I think is huge.
Well, that's one of the, actually that was a powerful moment when I remember he was explaining or teaching this philosophy or strategy, whatever you want to articulate it as. But he was saying, if what you're doing now, and this is how it related to me. So with us, we were leaving the gym life, owning gym fitness professionals, and we were doing this virtual online health and wellness and business coaching practice that we do now. Hustle turned into legacy business. So at the time, he was like, if what you're doing now in your main job, so this is for all of you who are looking to jump ship or level up or go after your passion and see if it can deliver on the financial side of that too, is he was like, is what you're doing now going to get you the results that you desire? Like those big, hairy, audacious goals. And he was like, if not, then who cares if it takes 5 years, 10 years? What if it took 15 years for you to hit that big, audacious goal? And that was kind of a aha moment for me, because that was where the whole marry the process tied in, because I was like, wow, he's right. If I continue to just, at the time, I think it was corporate America, we were doing that. That was before the gym actually too. I started thinking about when I was at corporate America, it was like, if I continue to work here for 15, 20 years, it's never going to deliver at the level and the capacity that I desire. Mm-hmm. So what if I just went into this and relinquished that microwave mentality, focused on what I could control consistently, and over time get better and better at those things, but in the meantime, do them anyway, right?
Yep.
Then I don't know when, I don't know how, but the results will show up. And he just kept saying it that way. And I was just like, again, the hope was breathed in, because I was like, I can control that. So you can get behind. Yeah. I really do. I think it's just human nature. We can get behind when we feel in control. It's when we feel like we are out of control of hitting those goals and those results. That's when we're just kind of like in limbo of activity, because we feel like we're not in control. But I don't know. This just kind of cleared things up to say, I'm in control.
This is what I can control.
I can do this.
Yes. Yeah. 100%. Oh my gosh. Like, that's so huge, because I think one of the reasons why people struggle or I know I did, to be honest, I won't speak for other people, I'll speak for myself, in just focusing on what I needed to do, what I could do in order for us to grow a thriving business, have healthy, abundant finances. And, to the point where we're living out that new American dream, was I didn't know what was my job to control. Right. Controlling other people, trying to control circumstances and situations, the weather, whatever, and basically when we're complaining about all these other things, we're trying to be in control of things that we cannot be in control of.
That's exhausting.
But when you get really, really clear on what is the one thing that you can control is you. That's it. What comes out of your mouth, what you think, what flows through your hands.
What's your habits?
Yep.
What's your routines? What's your level of action? You can control all that. So, for us, it was to look, and this could probably cross over to many different things of people who are listening and what they're doing and wanting to achieve. And how many people can you bring into your influence? So it's networking. It's
Yeah.
how many conversations can you start, right?
Mm-hmm. Giving good, consistent content on social media that also is you focused, but also portrays the business that you're building and how you can help people.
Right. Going
Like
with the
being
giving hand.
intentional.
How can you bring value?
Mm-hmm. Yep. If you're serving people, if you're in the business where there's a service aspect to what you do, for us, we both bring on clients, we support coaches. There's a service aspect to it. Being consistent there is huge. You know, when you say you're going to help someone, knowing what does that look like, setting expectations for how to do your job well.
Right.
And then showing up to that.
30 minutes of personal development, 30, 45 minutes, an hour at the gym. You can control these activities.
Oh my gosh. So many people are like, right now, they're like, I hate reading. And we're like, I didn't really read much. I mean, I obviously can read, but I mean, just 6 or 7 years ago, reading was not a thing for me. Because, wait, what? I
said, I don't know, you're from Bush.
Hey, son.
Oh,
how long have
son.
you been married to me?
Son, Bush, all those little country towns run together.
Oh my gosh. But in reality, one of my tasks, I identified what the action was. The action, the necessity was to read, because I do believe leaders are readers. Not all readers are leaders, but all leaders are readers, and they consume, information that helps them grow. And some of them listen to them on audio or podcast or whatever. There's many different forms, but all leaders consume content that helps them grow. So I set the benchmark because honestly, it was a stretch for me. And my benchmark initially was, I set a timer for 5 minutes. It sounded ridiculous to, like, as I worked this out in my head, but I knew I could commit to it. And it sounded ridiculous not to do it.
Right.
Like, who can't give 5 minutes set to a timer on your phone to read each day? I couldn't argue that I couldn't. So I felt like ridiculous if I didn't do it. But that one thing of
that
marrying
activity,
the process.
And then marrying the process that you can control, and only you can control it.
Yes. And I got real with the fact that I didn't want to even read 5 minutes, because I felt I was like having a little pity party. Like I had to pull up my big girl pants to read 5 minutes. Like it was not something I love now. I was totally like missing watching TV or, just falling asleep with the kids or whatever it was, but that from that day grew now to where I have, a habit of reading, but it started very small, and I just had to trust. I had to trust that 5 minutes was going to get me to where I want to be in the future.
Yeah, there's just comfort. I don't know. For me, there's just comfort in knowing that I'm in control.
Mm-hmm.
I alluded to that earlier, but there's just comfort in knowing that I am in control of my destiny. And that's what it boils down to, is lining up those things that are going to move you, those activities that are going to move you towards those goals, and then just hitting on them on a daily, consistent routine. But I will say this, that sometimes, we're not going to feel like doing it. Like, I'm not going to sit here and tell you that I'm hitting on my activity goals at a high level all the time. That'd probably be a whole nother podcast of how Sam and I work in sprints, and we have. But there is something to say about sometimes going through the motions is better than not going through the motions.
Correct.
And I'll say that again. Oftentimes it's better to go through the motions than to not go through the motions. Now there's a caveat to that, because for some of you, you're always just going through the motion and you're wondering why you're not creating this massive success in whatever your health, finances, whatever it may be. But then some of you, I was just having a conversation about the all or nothing mentality. That has served me well in many things, because once I've made up my mind, I'm all in. Get out the 100%, way. It's like my coffee force. Mug. Bring it, right? Let's go. That's once my mind's made up. But it may not be made up for months, years.
Yeah.
That's dangerous, right?
It is.
So it can hinder you and serve you. So that's actually another thing, though, that I adopted, was on those days when I'm not firing, and I become aware of how my personality was in that all or nothing mentality. And I said, you know what? On days when I'm not so feeling it, I'm going to just go through the motions. I'm going to check a few boxes off. That's my 100% for that day.
Well, and I think, honestly, if you don't have or haven't gotten clear with yourself, and if you're working with a coach There's someone that's guiding you in your business or your life. Get clear with them too. If you haven't identified what is a bare minimum, like bare minimum operation for my life, well, like when I wake up in the day, this is my bare minimum.
Yeah.
And a bare minimum in your business, so for me, a bare minimum would be like on my hardest day, like something, just really something I'm
on
just
a
feeling
bad
so
day.
bad, or we're not going to even say sick or someone died, because that's just different. But
yeah, I don't like to label any of it.
Honestly, even on those days, I would get up and I would drink water, or I would have water brought to me in bed. That is a bare minimum. I value hydration, on other days where you're not struggling with either sickness or grief or whatever. A bare minimum is I get up and I move my body. Like I have no agenda on how hard, if a workout it's got to be, or if I got to get to the gym, or if I got to do 5-mile run. It's I get up, I get outside if I can. And if I can't get outside and it's raining, which doesn't happen often here in Arizona, I'm doing jumping jacks or I'm doing some push-ups, but I'm committed to physical activity. I'm not going to always measure the intensity of it or the duration, but I'm committed, and that's a bare minimum. Most days, a bare minimum in our business would be to check in on some of our social media pages and our groups, to forecast and see what we have planned for events or trainings. That's a bare minimum. Mm-hmm. And so, yes, we know also if you're always operating a bare minimum, you're not always going to have stellar growth. But when people don't have a bare minimum, most of the time they're going backwards. Most of the time they're quitting. So, and when you have a bare minimum, you can also clearly identify what generating massive momentum would look like, right? Like, okay, we're in a season of growth, and you're not starting from nothing anymore. You're starting from a solid foundation that you can really actually launch, So I think that's just so important.
Yep. It's even on a bad day that was the goal, was to get even on a bad day. And we'll use that. I don't like to label things bad or good, but let's just, for lack of a word, let's say even on a bad or a challenging day, your bare minimum, to your point, going through the motion is more productive than your old self was or the rest of the world. Mm-hmm. Even on a bad day, a challenging day, when you can get to where you're operating even like at that level, man, over time, you marry the process. Mm-hmm. You hit it, because your 100% is going to change day to day. And as long as you got your actions there and you have your activities set, your 100% is going to vary, the intensity of it. It's still 100%. Like if you're sick in bed, your 100% is only going to be so much, right? If you're like feeling and you're vibrating that day full of life, then your 100% is going to be a whole nother level, but it's still, you can only give 100%. But as long as you marry that process, and we'll say that over and over again, because I think I heard it probably 150 times over my life or more, because I know I've probably said it more than that. Over time, the results show up every single time, because it goes back to the podcast we had earlier. It was about the habits. That becomes a habit. That becomes habitual. That becomes a way you just do life.
Yep.
And you operate. So it's something you don't have to think about. It's just the way you operate. And then that becomes flow. And that's a whole nother podcast too.
Yes. But habits, wisdom, which is, what you learn through doing life and encountering obstacles and creating that competence. Again, I've said it before, creates the confidence.
Yeah.
Doing the do. What is the do?
Yeah.
You identify that. You get clear on that. There's so many sayings out there. There's all the memes. There's all the motivational things. But until you get behind those motivational quotes and you actually start to put them into practice and define, like bullet by bullet, what does this actually mean?
Yeah.
What does this actually look like in my life?
Yeah.
What does this actually look like in my life today?
Mm-hmm.
People are so busy trying to plan out their year. Like they're like setting the year goals, which is great. That's fine. We do it too, right? But they stop there. They don't realize that once you set that year goal, you said it earlier, you have to reduce it down to what you do today. And when that's why I think it's like 80% of the people that set New Year's resolutions, they don't hit their goals.
Yeah.
80% of people, over 80% actually. And it's because that's where they stop.
That's that whole analogy, how to eat an elephant one bite at a time type of thing. So you can have the goal of an elephant, to eat an elephant, hypothetically, right? You got to break that down into those micro daily things, those habits and there's consistency through that. So for those of you listening, it's identifying what the goal is, whether it's health, financial health, relationships, whatever it is, personal development, whatever capacity it is. And then it's identifying what activities on the daily, those daily activities will give you the results that you want. So that's going to be part of the homework, is going to identify what those are. And you just look for successful people. Who's successful in health? Okay, let's go explore and identify what are they doing in their actions consistently. Okay, check. Then you just start doing that consistently. And over time, the results will show up. Financially, what is this person doing successfully that I'll look up to? Oh, okay, well, they're doing a little bit of this, a little bit of that. Oh, okay, I can do check.
Yep.
That's your homework.
Yeah,
It's
task
pretty
list.
simple. Yeah.
You need a checklist or a task list. That's it. And there's a lot of people that's already in front of you. I know for me, several years ago, I didn't realize it, but the task list was in front of me. I just had to use it,
Well, and here's the cool thing. So this is the most profound thing about this. And I can't believe I almost forgot it. We're so stuck in this mindset of being employees and working hour to hour, right? Sun up, sun down, 8 hours, 9 hours, 10 hours. And if we didn't do that, then we weren't efficient, right? We wasted the day. And knowing in that 8 to 12 hours, we really weren't that efficient anyway.
Right.
There's studies out there that show it's a fraction of that, third or fourth of that time was actually efficient. So the beautiful thing about when you become your own boss and you become an entrepreneur and when you start dialing these things in and you have an activity, daily goals, and you have them dialed in and you've refined them, is if you hit those in 2 hours, then we're good to say we're going to F off the rest of the day and have fun. If we want to binge on an hour or two of some stupid series, we're good because we know that we hit our goals for that day.
Yeah.
There's different philosophies out there. There's people that'll say sun up, sun down, you need 1 hour of sleep, go after your goals, you're a wuss if you don't, whatever. Good to them, that's cool. Yeah. But I'm saying the freedom parent philosophy is we want more balance, that counterbalance in our lives. And if it takes us 6 hours one day, if it takes us a 10-hour day, then hey, we hit it hard that day. The next day it took us 3 hours. Guess what? We're going to go to the zoo with the kids.
In 3 hours, 3 days, not 3 hours. Well, I don't know. We'll decide. Are we willing? Is that something we're willing to do?
Well, and you're not guilty. You don't feel guilty because you're like, I hit my activity goals for that day. I gave it everything I could. I had 6 things on my list and I crushed them. And it took me 3 hours instead of 8.
Exactly.
All right. I feel guilt-free. It's a shame. It's a damn shame that we got to feel that way. But I'd be naive to think that I'm the only one that felt that way, or you.
No. Yeah.
But we felt guilty because then we're what? Living our life. We're having fun.
Enjoying your kids.
So that is the power of marrying the process and divorcing the results packed into, 25, 30 minutes.
Yeah. I love it. So powerful, so freeing. Again, controlling the controllables.
Control what you can control.
That's 100%. If you take anything away, from this message is control what you can control. And again, that's what flows out of your mouth, what you think, what flows from your hands. That's the only thing we can control. So identify what that is and what you can do, and lean in. Marry the process, divorce the results.